Thanks, Mr. Piyush Mistry. Nikhil this side. We have received your question. So I think the panelists already have this in mind to discuss this particular question, because this is something a lot of people have asked us, and we have also spent a lot of time thinking about uh, you know what kind of business shifts will happen, whether that's in sales or even trade marketing, or whether that's even related to, for example, product packaging or brands, and in the, like you said, in the range. So we have thought about all of these questions, and yes, we are going to answer them. uh, Vinay is here. Vinay is one of our panelists. He is co-founder at BeatRoute. Hi Vinay, a lot of people have already joined.
Hi Nikhil, hi everyone. Good to see you folks.
So if you check the chat, Vinay, we have started receiving some questions also.
I'm looking at them.
Yeah. Mr. Bhosle, we had received your questions yesterday. So we also sent them to Vinay, Satyam, and Siddharth as well. So all of these questions were really relevant. I mean, some of these things were on our mind, but you also raised a few more pertinent questions. So it's going to be a good discussion. Thanks in part to the questions that you submitted. Hi Rajiv. Satyam is also joining us right now. Hey Satyam.
Hey, hi Vinay.
Satyam, Siddharth has also joined.
Hi Sid, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you? Siddharth, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just go into the background now. You guys can take over. So to the participants, we'll be, taking stock of all the questions, and towards the end, we'll get into specific questions that you submit now. So keep dropping in your questions. I'll leave it to panelists now.
Hi Vinay, how do you want to start it? I think it's almost time, or we have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll just take a couple of minutes.
I think we still have 2 minutes to go. Manisha.
we'll start in sharp 2 minutes from now.
Nikhil, I guess it's time to start.
Yes, it's the time.
Good to see you all, folks. My name is Vinay. Good morning. Good morning to folks in India. Good afternoon to folks in Philippines and Indonesia. And hello to everyone all around in the neighboring countries. It's strange. Can't see each other, so can't feel the vibe. I know some of you said hello. I expect more of you to say hello in the comment box, so we know that you are there live and kicking. I can't see any of you. Yeah, that's good. That's good, Sayog. Sayog Gangwal. Rajiv, good morning. Hello, Rohit. Srinivas, hello. Good, good. All right. So, folks, welcome to this webinar, Future of FMCG Sales in 2020s. I hope you're all keeping well and safe. Bringing back the courage to go back and start our businesses and get our businesses back with a good blend of safety, precaution, and sort of determination to get our businesses back. So I hope that's going on in India, definitely. I hear in neighboring countries as well from our folks there. Welcome again. This is being organized by BeatRoute. BeatRoute is a technology platform that helps you connect with your channel partners, your retailers, and sometimes your influencers better using technology and maximize interactions with them. That's all the role that we have today, in fact, to play to organize this along with our partners in some of the neighboring countries. We are at the beginning, we're in the midst of a really event of the century, if I say so. We're also at the beginning of a decade, a new decade. If I put this decade in perspective, last 2 decades we have seen in FMCG, CPG distribution context, channels like modern trade channel emerging up. More recently, in the last few years, e-commerce emerging up. So a lot of changes have happened, and particularly this decade, we all can expect with the pace of technology that we have around us, things are going to change really fast, right? And given all that, now we have COVID acting as a catalyst to expedite some of those innovations, to expedite some of those change in thought processes. But I do believe firmly that this is going to be a decade where a lot will change, and no better time really than to group together as a community and share thoughts, learn from each other. And that's why this webinar. So today, let me see if I can project a few slides here that will help us to structure ourselves. Nikhil, can you guys see my screen already? I hope you all can see. We are going to use a few slides to structure our discussion. Uh, so, like I said, good time to share with each other. I'm joined by two fantastic panelists with me today. Siddharth, I've had close interaction with him over the last 3 years as a customer. 20 years of experience across FMCG and consumer durables companies. He represents all that has happened over the last 20 years, right? And in the middle of it right now. So thanks, Siddharth. Good to have you. Say hello to everybody.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Satyam, again, tremendous amount of experience across FMCG companies, some of the very well-known brands, and also represents a thought process from a new age company. He recently, his last few months has been with a new age company called Ola, that is more so far known as last mile transportation. But I'm sure they have many other things on their mind. Say hello, Satyam.
No, Vinay, great to be here.
And
thanks for inviting me for sure.
I'm Vinay, co-founder BeatRoute. I have interacted with about 500 to 700 customers in CPG industry over last 6 years in our journey at BeatRoute, and before that as a co-founder of another SAP consulting firm that was focused in a CPG industry. So hope to bring a thing or two here in this discussion. Moving on then, this is how we're going to run it, folks. So we will have a sort of a panel discussion format. I'll try and structure it. Many of you already put in your questions, so thanks for that. We are going to include all that. That's helpful. And those of you who have not been able to put your questions forward so far, please do it now as we go. There is a Q&A section in Zoom that you'll see right at the bottom. Just put in your questions there. We will try and take them up. And if we cannot take those questions, then definitely we'll get back to you an email. Right at the end of this session, we'll give you an email. You could also mail your questions that we can respond to you offline, right? No need to take any specific note of the exact conversation because we're going to share a whole recording of this within 48 hours to you, right? So with all that background and context, Siddharth, Satyam, let's chat. Yeah?
Sure.
Right. So to put it as a context, to set up this with a context, in a country like India, the last mile trade, so to say, is about 500 to 700 billion dollars. So some people estimate it to be 700 billion dollar already. Close to 3 or 4% of this is so far on e-commerce. About 15% across product categories on in modern trade. That is like 15-year-old approximately for India. And good 85% still happens through neighborhood stores and standalone stores really. And that's kind of situation that exists in our neighboring countries as well. Parts they are from the Philippines and Indonesia, apart from India. So similar structures there as well. Slight bit of change. My first question in today's environment and post this sort of COVID in the world, do you believe there is going to be a channel shift between these different channels? Satyam, you first.
Yes, Vinay. Thanks for leading to the discussion and putting the first question over here. See, first of all, before we begin, I would like to just give a small scenario of what is happening right now and a couple of challenges which we are facing. Just to give a perspective, India continues for most of the companies roughly around 85 to 90% in terms of general trade, while 13 for 12% will be modern trade. Very small proportion is direct to consumer, which comes from e-commerce. And there are a couple of things which are involved in different legs, which I would say of the process. First and foremost is the fact that hygiene is up at entire supply chain, right from a time stuff is procured to a factory, to the finally it comes to a distributor, go down, from a DB's end once it gets supplied to a retailer, and even the way it gets interacted at a retailer in various formats. So all the companies are going to take care of hygiene over there. If they are not, then they are in trouble. So that's one of the first things which I'll have to begin with, and then that has its additional cost.
Point
Another
taken.
trend emerging over here, specifically in GT stores, is the fact that social distancing is going up. I'm sure all of you would have been, those who have been, most of you have been a part of the lockdown. The neighborhood kirana or the provision store which you have been to, you would have seen small circles around it, and there's a queue line up. Now that, in all probabilities, even is going to continue for the next set of few months. So as a result, the bandwidth to attend the customer is going down. So let's say if a large shop used to entertain 4 shoppers at the same time, the speed is only 1 at the same time. So if it had to cover a set of shoppers in 1 hour, it's going to take 4 hours. Now you can imagine the life of a salesman who is trying to approach this shop. Obviously, he has to undergo a lot of challenges. So as a clear result, the calling time per outlet will go up. And definitely the calls which a salesman in a GT environment is going to make is definitely going to go down, which is the total cost. So this is, observation number 1. Second observation with regard to merchandising is definitely going to be that in-store visibility execution is going to be challenged. And even for a salesman perspective, in-store, entering a retail and taking account of the stock is going to be a big challenge. Now, all these are problems which we need to solve in today's era, keeping in mind the fact that retailer money is very limited, and a GT retailer technically rotates the money for an essentials right now. So the couple of disadvantages I will say GT has, still it would have gained in the month of March, because my mobility in terms of kilometer is very, very limited. So that sales is bound to shoot up. One leverage channel which has come up and which was actually emerging and has actually shot after this is the chemist channel, which not only got a permission to open up, but is seeing a horde of different varieties and categories of FMCGs, whether it be right from OTC to, there are even few players who have put in personal grooming products like trimmers and all, which have seen a few shift. What I feel is that modern trade and all the open formats are definitely going to get an advantage in this kind of VUCA environment. VUCA, which stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. It stems from the fact that all of us are going through a phase, and everybody is asking that what is going to happen next. We have a fear of the unknown. In such an environment, modern trade, and for that matter, all the big brands also, they reduce one variable, which is my peace of mind in terms of hygiene. And I'm sure they will also need to do some homework to go ahead and do that. So I think this is one of the major shifts which is going to see how an FMCG coverage is done. And one final change will be direct to home. So while direct to home, if you go a few years back, where companies like P&G used to set up a kiosk in a society, it used to be looked up as a marketing or a consumer insight study kind of behavior or a marketing spec. Now that trend is going to change. If as an FMCG company, I am not tying up if I'm not very tying up with companies which are aggregators in terms of hyperlocal delivery, if I'm not strategic in terms of my alliance, if I'm not agile over there, I'm going to lose out. So watch out for this channel as well as modern trade, which I bet on are definitely going to gain from the process. So is the chemist channel.
Right. Well said, Satyam. So you believe that because of the fear, particularly in this pre-vaccine period, the sales reps who would typically meet these retailers also would have some fear about all this mixing up with people. As it is, consumers are queuing up, so there is going to be issues around how many people can meet the retailer, and hence some shift and perception of consumers, particularly about safety. Some shift will happen to modern trade, and you talked about direct delivery to home, and possibly I believe some shift is also going to happen as far as orders are concerned, to some new age platforms which aggregate orders from retail stores and source from brands at the back end. That has already been happening in some of our countries, but to a very minimal extent. Now that might get a little bit of more share. Siddharth, you want to talk about the extent of this this channel shift?
Yeah. So to be very honest, see, we are in the midst of an uncertainty. I mean, 3 months back, none of us knew what the situation is going to be, or we could never have even imagined where we are, what would have happened as of what is happening currently. It was not in any one of our mind. But then if you look at it, it is a completely volatile situation. There is going to be a change, there is no doubt. The new normal is going to be very different from what the older version of it was. Now, how different, how quick will the companies adopt to it? How quick will the retailers, the offline retailers, the kirana stores, how quick will they adopt to it is what is is what will be significant. When you look at it, yes, the digital will definitely get a push. All digital mediums will get a push, and all companies also will have to be, companies which were not probably as agile earlier will now have to move to a much more agile platform as far as digital is concerned. The orders will move to some extent to a digital platform, yes, but then these will be more towards the aggregators, because most of the FMCG companies or CPG companies, if they think that they have an app or a web link where the retailer will place an order for them, may not be very convenient for the kirana store or the offline retailer, as we know, because of the habits, or the one is the legacy that they have, and second is because of the level of education that they have. So they're not very tech savvy, so that may not be very, very pertinent now. What will also be very important is how these companies innovate, because when we look at, we need to ensure that the companies have to innovate, and they have to have a personalized engagement with the retailer. Because if you look in the past, during the lockdown phase, ITC had tied up with Domino's to deliver their products. So these sort of mergers, these sort of tie-ups are going to go up manyfold. Definitely that is going to happen through the digital route. But yes, we need to understand that there's still a very large population of consumers as well as the mom and pop stores that we have who are not as digital savvy. And if the companies do not innovate and get them onto their platforms, or are not able to get them into their aggregators, they will still continue to order the way they were traditionally, though the order might change from the sales rep physically visiting the store to actually collecting it via phone or via video chat, or other means of communicating, but that relationship will still remain. So it is not that the relationship will go away. Digital orders, yes, they will shift.
Right, great perspective, Siddharth. Let's try and break this down. So we are saying part of the shift would happen to modern trade. Some more orders will move in shorter term, definitely in the pre-vaccine era, when people are not wanting to crowd and may sort of get close to each other, to the new age platforms, the aggregators. Given the bulk of the business happens in the traditional way, where these sales reps meet the retailer to collect order, for the remaining part of it, you mentioned things like web link, or giving an app to the retail store, or maybe even trying to get a retail store to place an order on a WhatsApp initiated sort of a conversation. He can't put an order on a WhatsApp in a conversational format, but he can at least trigger a sort of an application or a web link from there, avoiding any authentication, or avoiding him to actually install or remember any web link for a particular brand.
Correct.
But even that you believe is going to be hard, given the habits of the people, and given the reception that they have been so far receiving from sales reps. So if you look at between that and a telephone order, just somebody calling the retailer, a sales rep calling the retailer, just conversing with them on phone or video chat, as interesting a point that you bring out, right? You believe that would be a bigger share and sort of way to go?
Yes, that definitely would be, because see, when you understand the psyche of a retailer, the first thing that he wants, especially for the FMCG CPG category, is he wants the complete bouquet. So it is not one brand or one product that he's dealing with. He's dealing with multiple lines, multiple brands, and he needs to have a choice in that, because the consumer, when he walks in, or even when he places an order over a e-commerce site or an app or a phone, he will have to have different choices. Now, each consumer will have a different choice. So he will need to ensure that he has the full basket, not just one particular brand or one particular line of it. So in that case, it is very pertinent for the sales rep to actually get into a conversation to upsell his product. What we were also in the discussion, we were saying that, probably the influence of the retailer will be very skeptical, and he would not want to maybe, push a lot of material because he would want to serve more number of customers. While that is true, it would also be that because he knows that there are limited number of customers who will come to his store. So every customer that comes to a store, he would want to up the ticket item. He would want to up the ticket size. And so he would definitely look at pushing more products. And for that to happen, he will need to have, some variety available with him. So something new which he can offer. One is the experience at the store once the customer walks in. And second is also give him a differential product or some differential service where probably, it becomes easier for the consumer also to for him also to upsell and for the consumer to consume his products and have a relationship. See, most of us, while we go to the modern stores, yes, there has been quite a shift. We've also ordered through e-commerce. The digital savvy population which has ordered. But even when you look at it during these lockdown phases, it was ultimately the Kirana store or a neighborhood store who's actually helped you survive. He's the one who's actually, been by your side. And as a matter of gratitude, which is the normal human nature, we will definitely go back to him. While there'll be a large population which will be shifting to modern stores, like what Satyam said, because of the hygiene, because of the cleanliness, etc. But there'll be a very large population which will still stick to the Kirana store or the neighborhood store.
Right.
And for that to happen, definitely it is going to be, yes, the order definitely, like I said, the orders are going to be digital, the orders are going to be different. But yes, the relationship, the one-to-one relationship has to be there, and that is something which is encouraging even in these times. When we look at industries, we have people like even at the national sales manager level calling up and conversing with the critical customers, which is the retailers of the brand, and that actually turns out that actually points to us saying that the relationship right from the the national head level right up to the sales rep is very critical, and that one-to-one conversation needs to happen. Now that frequency might change. Earlier, the sales rep probably used to visit him every week. Now probably he'll be visiting him once in 15 days, and the balance will probably happen over phone or a video chat.
Yeah.
So, Vinay, one of the best ways looking at taking points from Siddharth here as well, because the kind of GT penetration and count which you have in India that can never be discounted. If you club the two and you look out at a GTM, and if I were a GTM manager, perhaps one thing which I'm going to pull out is my program set of outlets, which are my high Pareto contributing outlet. And for most of the company, there is either a 70-30 rule or an 80-20 rule, where my 20% of the outlets contribute to 80% of the business, which I classify and program. And these are the, to gain their share of mind, perhaps we can leverage technology in terms of perhaps a video call or something, and gain their share of mind by calling out in terms of what payout we are giving or what visibility we are giving to them, which will definitely be good. One point to understand is there that no retailer is going to entertain your web link till the time you are as strong as perhaps a Unilever, where you command roughly 25 to 30% sales of that outlet, and that is where the aggregators sit. Second GTM would be definitely focusing on my chemist route, and thirdly, for the rest of the outlets where I see my attention span, where my calling per day, and where my time taken, call per outlet is going to get challenged. Perhaps we can design an RTM where instead of a weekly visit, you plan it to a fortnightly visit, or perhaps even a monthly visit.
Right.
But key customers, as Siddharth again said, is we'll have to really leverage them in these times.
Cool. Interesting points come up. I picked three of them. One, Siddharth talked about assortment and how that sort of that sort of drives the behavior of a retailer as far as order placement is concerned. Second, the relationship importance and what you offer to the retailer as a brand. And third, you also brought out Siddharth and Satyam, both of you, about visit frequencies and how that would need to be reconfigured. So let me pick the first point. Siddharth, very important. So you said that retailers would place an order on any technical platform if their sort of business needs are met, and their business needs, typically they're hunting for price discovery, if at all, and they are looking for the convenience of being able to order a large variety of items, and that would typically not be possible for a particular is one specific brand to offer through any technical medium. So essentially, bulk of the process would still be a sales rep uh, interacting with a retail store, maybe not face to face, maybe over phone, maybe over a digital medium. But it is not happening triggered by voluntarily by the retailer himself. It is being triggered by the sales rep. Does that mean if I combine the relationship part, if I combine the assortment, or if I combine the retailer's mindset to wanting to sort of get the best price, do you think this one-on-one interaction would also then have a semblance of sales reps then offering a deal to a retailer on a digital medium? Something like, you're not just telling him that, hey, this is the order that I would recommend to you based on your past history, but these are the two deals that you can take up.
Yeah, so Vinay, just to add to that, the 2 points that you said, along with that, we will also need to understand that the most of the bulk of the trade that happens is on credit, if not all, the bulk of it. So it is also very critical to understand what is the amount of credit, because most of these, I mean, if you have an aggregator, if you have a digital medium, digital platform, probably he may not be able to offer the same amount of credit that the retailer gets from a brand. Now that needs to be very clearly. So maybe, I don't know, maybe in future you might see aggregators coming up who will actually be, will be having multiple brands. They'll have distributors of multiple brands of the same, ancillary products listed with them, and they actually be routing the order through their platform to the distributor concerned, and the distributor will be supplying, so that the credit terms, etc., remain as they are. There will hardly be any change there. But so you could have you could have a lot of these innovations coming up in time to come.
Right.
But yes, the sales rep will be offering them, definitely they'll be offering them the deals, etc. But then see, like even today when the sales rep goes to a store, and in order to upsell or in order to cross sell, he always says that you get this is the deal. So you're almost close to 80% of that. If you do another 20%, you get this deal. So why don't you go for it? That conversation still happens.
Right.
That conversation will continue to happen. But then what will happen is also the organizations will need to understand that probably earlier, while the sales rep used to have a lot of time, spend a lot of time. The distributor also would go out of his way probably for the key customers to give them extra credit. Now because of the entire fund situation or the monetary situation also not being very fluid, because the distributors may not, quite a few of them would be under cash crunch, because they would have their staff, they're having to bear their expenses, they're having to carry the inventory, but the sales are not compensating what they were supposed to get earlier. So the margin is not what they're getting earlier. While the margin percentage remains the same, the absolute margin would be much lower because of the phase of lockdown that we are in. Now, for that, what will happen is the companies will probably need to look at a much smaller size of schemes. So example, if we have a 10+1 scheme, probably the companies might want to look at something like a 6+1 or 5+1, depending upon the the economy of the company, that the way company would want to generate. But I don't think too much of large ticket items for a retailer would interest a retailer or a long-term loyalty or a long-term association, because like I told you in past, we are in very uncertain times. We cannot expect that a retailer will be loyal to us for the next 3 months, or see down the line 6 months, because once probably the lockdown norms ease, we do not know what stage we are going to be. Maybe the cases might shoot up, and we have had quite a few countries where after the initial relaxation, again the lockdown has to be imposed.
Right. Fair point. Yeah.
So that is why we'll have to
point here, Siddharth. I think, and we just looked around it. So one of the things which you discussed is around credit of an online platform. That problem is already being solved, and in fact, there are micro lending firms. In fact, there are a lot of fintech innovations which have started tying up with. So I'll just give you an example. One of unicorns, which was the fastest unicorn, Udaan, which works on this principle. Now, Udaan had earlier tied up with one of the micro lending platforms. Coincidentally, one of the top 5 FMCG companies that micro lending platform to provide credit to their sub-stockists in the rural.
Right.
And the process was much more scientific rather than a blanket one. They do a complete risk analysis, what past behavior, and this is how you do it. Looking
Fair
at
point.
the
Yeah.
kind of margins which they were doing there, players like Udan have started their own micro lending firm. So they have a child company which deals with these financials to ensure that problem is solved.
Absolutely. Yeah. So no, good points. Like you both sort of agree. Very fluid times. There will be things that will be sure of in short term. There will be things that we'll have to watch out and then change. Definitely, newer things could emerge. Now, one thing that came out from both of you was, because of this behavioral change, because some things would move to empty channel, some things would move to, some orders would move to modern retail, and partly the retailer sales reps would have more sort of a faceless connect, but faceless connect. Would this mean fewer visits to some of these retail stores, more segmented approach of field coverage, um, maybe less frequency at certain stores, maybe no visit at a certain store, uh, that kind of situation, and people will need to reconfigure their visit plans, Satyam?
Yeah, so we exactly spoke about that. So when we said that, one of the, sample GTMs which I would advise is the fact that along with your existing coverage of the channels, you're going to add up two channels. One is going to be the telecalling channel, and one is going to be the direct to consumer channel, where you'll have to think through strategic alliances which best suits your bet to provide goods to your consumers in a hygienic fashion. There is one more channel which I want to talk about, which are players like Udan, or let's say there are other B2B aggregators, which will come in the near future, which will ensure harmless and seamless supply to these outlets. Now, during when cities in India have opened up with orange zone or even green, one of the biggest challenges which manpower faces, the sector is facing is of that of manpower. So we'll have to design our strengths and fish where the fishes are. Perhaps that's where I said we'll have to segment a set of outlets, which are program outlets. Perhaps keep the frequency of visit bi-weekly or weekly, whatever it is, basis different organizations the same. Ensure what Siddharth spoke of, maintain relations through video conferencing, other technology means wherever you can gain a share of mind of the shopper, or I should say the retailer here. Focus on chemists, focus on building these two other channels, and for the rest of the space, which is the vast GT universe, you perhaps you can alter your frequency depending on your need from a weekly, fortnightly, or even a monthly. But do not miss out on that.
Siddharth, your thoughts, particularly also because you come from a slightly different product category.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I look at it, while the physical visits might have to be redesigned, taking into account the the status of the city, the status of the area, the containment zone, etc. But the connect has definitely to go up. While he may not visit the store physically, he'll definitely have to increase his engagement with the store, and that personalized engagement with the store and increasing of his time for the retailer, not physically but through other alternate means, will be very critical, because then it is the organization which will be at the top of the mind for the retailer, and he knows that this is a guy who's been with me through thick and thin, and he's been with me and he's been guiding me, he's been there helping me out, he's been taking feedback from me. So he will, that ultimately plays a very critical role, especially in a emotional background market that we are in. Had it been a very professional mindset market, probably in some parts of the world, that may not be very important, but India thrives majorly on emotion, and it'll be very critical of which organization, which representatives are keeping a closer connect or more frequent connect with the retailer and the influencer. That will definitely help the organization in the long run, at least in the post COVID, till we get a vaccine out, and these physical visit at the store can be back to normal.
Right. Siddharth, that brings me to the point of, if relationships are going to be important, I'm pretty sure if visits go down, frequency of visits go down, they become even more important. At the end of the day, brands fight for the preferential mind share of the retailer, um, as well as the shelf space at his real estate, right? And that requires you to have a deal with him, some kind of verbal or non-verbal contract with him, which is a win-win relationship, and that requires human interaction. So you are right. And will that mean there will be different skill sets expected from sales reps now that they won't be visiting that often, but yet expected to maintain relationships. A business leader from Philippines asked me, should we top grade our sales reps or sales teams?
Yeah, so the skill set definitely will need to be upped. That is there's no second thought on that. And in fact, quite a few organizations that I know of have been utilizing this particular lockdown 50-day period to train their representatives, to train their managers, to give them the basic training as to how well and how nicely they can connect with the retailers. And not just the connect, but also, how to upsell, how to cross sell, because while physically going at the store, it becomes much easier to discuss and to do things because you're having a face-to-face conversation. But same when you're communicating with him on the phone, probably his attention span will not be very high, because he'll be having a lot of other distractions which will keep distracting him. And as a result, he will not be completely glued into the particular sales rep only. So in that case, yes, we'll need to understand what is it, pick clues, what is it that excites the individual, what is it that is exciting for the retailer. And that is what I said, it has to be a very personalized connect. It cannot be a one shoe fits all, because what I think as a critical, what I think that might be critical for one retailer may not be critical for the other retailer. So while conversing with the retailer, I need to get into the nuances, I need to pick up the insights, and then customize my discussion around the point that is of interest to him, and then take him through the entire journey, and then try to convert that into a better relationship, a better order, a better ticket size for the retailer. That is going to be very critical.
Right. If relationship skills are going to be so important, if people need to be skilling themselves, one thing that sort of remains at the top of my mind is that when people look at technology enablement for sales teams over last several years, last decade, so to say, people have either focused on the outcome, measuring the outcome, or they have focused on very selective input metric. Strangely, entire world has been sort of after tracking the sales rep. Where is he going? Has he reached the store or not, right? To my mind, it's been a so lopsided viewpoint of just tracking one enabling metric, right? Now when things become even more qualitative, people are going to look at the output metric, but as far as inputs are concerned, input matrices are concerned, it's not just about, first of all, it's not just going to be visit, it's going to be visit as well as any other modes of interaction.
Correct.
Message exchange, or you exchange the deal information with the retailer on WhatsApp or on SMS or something, or just a phone call, right? Those are going to be needing to be tracked. Plus, if you look at more qualitatively, do you think people will start looking at, the guy who has the right skill to sell a range, the guy who has the right skill to sell a volume to a retailer is the guy who's going to win. This is no more just visiting a retail store, asking him, which has been the case for 80% of the sales reps, right? And just doing a hard transaction. It is not a hard transaction anymore. It is, you have to stay away and then convince somebody. So people are going to be watching other matrices as well of success, leading indicators.
Absolutely. So that is very critical. See, when we look at the way in which we are communicating, or we are connecting with our customers or the retailers, so to say here, it is very critical for us to understand two things. One is, because it is a digital medium, and it'll happen more through the digital medium than it'll happen through the physical visits, etc. So there has to be a lot of decentralization. Now, you cannot keep a tab. When you were earlier there, you can tell him that from 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening is when you visit the store. But right now, when he's making a call, probably the retailer would not be comfortable receiving a call from a sales rep at 9 in the morning, because he would be busy selling his stuff. He would probably want him to call after 12:30, when it will be a lean period. And again, he would not want anyone probably to call him between that 4 to 6 period, which will be the peak time for him to sell. So this will become very critical. So there will have to be a lot of decentralization, or you'll have to look at it that there has to be a lot of delegation. So the control cannot lie at the center. So it cannot be the central, the RTM or the zonal head or the sales head who will be the all in all, or who will be the one in control. he has to allow a lot of decentralization.
Apart
That
from
has to
other
happen.
things, one thing which I want to add up, Vinay, is we are skipping a very big part, which is, how do we strategize and have more, fundamentally tracking matrices before we go ahead and put the gun with a salesman who's already going to a battlefield, risking not only his life but also working in a very very challenging retail environment. So I think, if I were the head of a company, one thing which I will think and strategize around is the fact that there will be certain set of products which will be selling right now, right? And there will be certain set of products which will be struggling right now. If you give me an answer, should I top grade my talent? I'll definitely say yes, and right from top to bottom. And then that step starts with somebody who crafts a strategy over here. And now what most of the companies, in fact, I know of a few companies like Reckitt, which have already started doing it. Or let me give you some examples from companies like Dabur as well. What is happening? There are certain set of brands which are flying off the shelf, right? So let's call them the consumption-driven brands or high consumption brands. For example, if I pick up a company like Dabur, my Chyawanprash, my honey, and a lot of stuff around food is actually flying off the shelf because that's the in thing. But if I look on the other side of a Fem Gold bleach, which is a cosmetic kind of a sector right now, that's actually it slows down. So one of the key pivots, and answering one of the questions which one of the speakers asked me right now, how do you push sale in such an environment? So first and foremost, tracking of these brands separately with all the key KPIs, whether it be top line sales, whether it be distribution, whether it be in-store visibility and execution, blah, blah, blah. Certainly, first and foremost, going to put your organization in charge of driving things which are not being driven out. Step two is what I will think. A lot of these, items are actually very difficult to push at a store. While we may, end up building the capability, the fact of life remains is that the retailer has got very limited money, which is rotating very fast in essentials. Right? So if he's selling let's say, a flour or rice or staples or stuff like that, he will put that money. He'll get cash in the evening. But we may sell him up more for the one time. If consumption is slightly slowed down, is for 4-5 days, he may take a step back. It's extremely, extremely critical for me to understand that what shoppers are coming in, what RE, and which product can I piggy bank along with my consumption driver in that RE. For example, let's say a Dabur, in case of a Dabur again, a real juice is not going that great. Because and when we try deep diving into the fact, one thing majorly is coming across is people are scared to drink anything cold, and juices are mainly consumed cold because of COVID reasons. And second, the reasons are on the go consumption or off premise consumption isn't happening, which used to happen a lot for these products. Now I will ensure that if I drive it in an RE where I go with an outstanding promotion in the category and I piggy banking along with my things which are selling to ensure it reaches to the consumer. And perhaps those are the kind of things which I will teach my upselling skills, my salesmen as well.
Right. Measuring KPIs all across and strategies like tactics.
Let's divide your products in what's selling, what's not. Start tracking both of them actually as an organization. That's something which I feel will make you win.
Right. And as far as skills of people are concerned, invest in that, and then also measure their performance not through just one metric, interaction or visit, just do a holistic.
Yes, let it be more, I am a big fan of the fact that, keeping very high expectations from all the people. And I think this is the time where a lot of retailers can be, my field force, which is my salesman, can be upskilled in terms of how to engage, how to ensure you capture the share of the mind, how to ensure the right communication takes place, how to ensure cross-selling takes place. So these are the fundamentals. Along with it, how do you ensure, how will you manage if you're put in some other channel? If you have been handling traditionally GT, perhaps how do you handle it? If I put you in an MT or if I make you in charge of promoting in a DTC environment. So this is the time to let them be exposed to what's happening and learn from it.
Right. Great. Siddharth, look at some of other categories, for example, consumer durables. Some people were also trying to ask us questions that will there be a latent demand? Will sales bounce back? How much of this loss I'll be able to recover? I thought that may be true for some consumer durables items. You've spent years in that segment. Comment on that.
Yeah. So see, when you look at kitchen appliances or when you look at consumer durables, you'll have it coming back because now people have understood that this is a very fluid situation. It may need to come back, and I need to have all the appliances, etc., where I can deal with it. Because suddenly on 22nd of the month, the Prime Minister announces a one-day Janta curfew, and 25th onwards, 24th night, he announces tomorrow onwards complete lockdown, and that has continued for last 50 days. So we were not in a position to equip ourselves for the lockdown. I mean, because most of us are used to someone doing some sort of helping us out in some of the chores that we have. But it becomes very essential to understand that now I need to equip myself, whether I use it or not, but I will definitely equip myself with the gadgets that I require for my day-to-day house chores. I will not take a risk on that. So the demand. So once it opens up, you'll see a lot of demand coming up for things like dishwasher, washing machine, vacuum cleaner, etc. So the kitchen appliances like mixer, hand blender, etc. Because this is what people probably they have not been used to it. So they will definitely bounce back. But yes, if we think that it is very difficult to say whether it will bounce back to the previous or whether this Diwali is going to be the same as it was the Diwali of 2019 or 2018. That is very difficult to comment because we are still in a very fluid situation. We don't know what is going to happen a month down the line or 2 months down the line. So it will bounce back, yes, but may not be to the same level as it was in the pre-COVID era. Not to the same level, not to the same extent maybe.
So, Vinay, if you give me some time, I'll just tell you a small story around it.
Yeah.
So I was actually checking TikTok a couple of days back, right? And I spent good like half an hour on it. And of all the videos I saw, trust me, they bring a smile on your face in 15 seconds, that's for sure. They were bucketed in three major categories, right? One of the categories was fun around people doing household chores, where they're grooming or they're sweeping, washing clothes or washing dishes. This is one of the major trends which I saw. The second bucket which I saw is people doing a lot of fun in the kitchen and having fun around it, right? And the third one which I saw is a large set of people trying to extract alcohol from sanitizer. I'll not speak on the last one, but I think certainly the first two have got a light to throw over here, right? And first and foremost, see, a lot of stuff around household chores. People, do not have access to maids because of COVID, right? A lot of societies are not allowing maids to go over here. So a lot of people have started enjoying household chores. In fact, at least they pretend so in TikTok. So I see a lot of sales for stuff like vacuum cleaners, right? Sales of stuff around dishwashers is definitely going to shoot up in white goods. Stuff to do around kitchen. In fact, just to tell you, last week I was in a mall finally after the lockdown got relaxed, and I bought a cold press juicer, by the way. So I'm very bullish on juicers, sandwich makers, microwaves. People are making pizzas. You see, food is and these are I'll talk about the upper middle class or even the lower middle class set of the people, inclusive of the rich people. We are devoid of small joys in our life right now because we cannot go to a mall, we cannot go to office parties, we cannot go clubbing, or we cannot go to cinema theaters. Food brings joy in that family. The fact we cook, or you have your golgappa together, or you have your sandwich together. And trust me, this is what my family and most of the families I've interacted with have been doing. And that's perhaps the reason why a lot of baking powders, pizza bases, a lot of cremes, they are not just growing, they are skyrocketing.
Right.
So I am very, very bullish, and I'm sure this is going to understand one thing, that while restaurants are closed, and I will not speak on the total sales, but we are adding a lot of new consumers in these categories, which are going to stay and which are going to, leverage this thing, which is, I'll say, DIY here.
Yeah. No, I can vouch for what you and Siddharth said. My
watch out again. While washing machines and dishwashers we have go ahead with, air conditioning is one of the and also add one more device that's electronic, that's called grooming. Salons are closed, and a lot of players like Philips, they have innovated, and the other players, Cisco and others, have come up with trimmers or hair straightening solutions. That sale is booming right now. And even you would go to small channels like chemists or grocers who started stocking this piece. One watch out, air conditions, that sale is going to be limited. Perhaps Most of the offices are closed. Cinema theaters are closed. Malls, shopping complexes are closed. Airports are shut. So, their sale is actually is at the peak right now. Also, the fact, even in the households, I've observed that people who have two senior people or people who have two, infants, which are, I would say COVID vulnerable janta, they are not switching on AC because they really feel that cold thing is going to hit on them. Even the shopping complexes or standalones which are open as per government directive or suggestion, they are not opening AC. So ACs, I think, will go down.
Right. In general, we do believe there is certain product for which latent demand is going to be there and it will bounce back. Part of the damage people will recover. I can vouch for that with my personal experience. My microwave is broken in this period. The engineer in me sort of woke up. I bypassed the switch that was broken actually, and I have it working with the main switch itself. But I'm pretty sure I'm going to buying one the moment the shops open up.
And I'm sure today your wife is giving you a tough time then,
I actually got some, grew in respect from her because I fixed it. So, so that's a good part of it. But yeah, so you talked about Satyam, and there is also a question that I see. The gentleman is asking us, is there going to be a market for direct to consumer brands, single brands, basically in this kind of period? And then I was trying to juxtapose that with what you were saying, people wanting to do certain things. And then you also briefly touched upon different marketing channels. You want to elaborate on that? How people like that can sort of leverage on some new marketing channels?
Can I ask the speaker to elaborate a bit more on what category is he talking about, so I'll be able to pinpoint that information in.
Will be very hard, Satyam, because most of them are on mute. But it's like a single brand direct to customer, right?
See, I think this is a time, but what the route of market which you follow, if you start your own app or you start your own website or you link, that is going to be very, very cumbersome. But perhaps if you've got a right USP and you can leverage this VUCA times right now to provide that trust, I think that then you will be victorious here. And I feel that this is the time where a lot of unorganized sector is shifting to organized right now, whether it be snacks. So, and traditionally Indian market has been, because I've handled snacks and confectionery both, forms a major chunk of it. You would be surprised to know that snacks market is roughly 40 to 45% still unorganized in India, which comprises of all your kurkures of the world, which is extruded snack, or whether it be a fried potato chips, or whether it be what in Bihar you call a bhuja, which is we call desi dry fruit. So all these stuff are people not willing to buy, and that trend is also visible for something like staples. I was talking to one of the field person yesterday. He told me people are not buying sugar right now; they are buying packaged sugar right now, because and this was one of the brand which ensures that there is no touch whatsoever right from a plant till the time it's consumed in your plate, right? So these are the kind of dynamics flowing. So obviously for a packaged good industry, that is going to play a very, very key role. The reason why I asked the fact that which category is that person operating in, because there are certain categories which are definitely going to be flying through the shelf, which is stuff to do with consumer health, whether it be personal care or home care, stuff to do with kitchen, will be premix, a lot of DIY things, as I talked about. Then there are a lot of snacking and food items which are packaged, as I talked about, right? The relevance of direct to consumer channel in this case will be a lot of adaptation is happening for the people to get these stuff online. And I'll take some more time, Vinay, and let me throw some data, because Siddharth also raised a point on the pertinence of this channel. As of today, there are roughly 620 million internet users in India, of which roughly 490 million will be active internet users, which will be roughly around 49 to 50 crore. That number, if I split with urban versus rural, the urban number is roughly around 300 million and the rural number is around 20 million. Now watch out this trend. The thing to observe here, the rural is growing at 35-36%, which is almost 5 to 6 times the growth of an urban in terms of active internet users. The smartphone penetration in India, which is the second most thing, which was roughly 480 million or 48 crores in the year 2019. By 2022, that's going to be 840 or 840 million or 84 crores in Indian parlance. So that is a massive shift. that those kind of shifts really do not happen. And after the geo revolution in 2015, India, which used to be 1/50th in terms of data consumption, is actually the within top 2 countries of data consumption. And players like TikTok, we are the biggest market. And where is the market? It's actually in areas like Bihar and UP. Why I'm giving you all these points is the fact that there is a very vast sector which is sitting in rural, which has got aware about the urban brand demands. So if the gentleman is in one of those hit categories, which is going to fly, or which is in this, and he's able to resonate certain trust through his brand, through a digital medium targeting the right audience, I think he's got a way to go.
Right. Get it. Fair point, Satyam. Siddharth, there is going to be clearly a pre-vaccine phase when people are going to be fearful, but once you get into the post-vaccine phase, this is going to be like maybe slightly more dangerous than influenza that we've known for and lived with for quite a long time. Many of us, and I hope most of us, will be immune to this. So only that part will sort of remain, which is going to be sort of behavioral change that we would inculcate in ourselves, and it will persist. Many of these short-term things are going to go away. What do you think? What are the top 3 sort of sales excellence, initiatives that you would advise or you would yourself take on in this period?
Yeah, so the first thing, so I just hope what you say is correct, and I hope the vaccine comes in earlier than later. I mean, it has to be, because for every one of us to be, into the business, we want that to happen fast. So when we look at what are the changes that we would want to know, we want to look at. So one is, like I said, there has to be a lot of decentralization, and there has to be a lot more action than the planning. So while there's a lot of planning, so in the last decade, etc., also even till some time back, there was a lot of impetus that was given on planning. How do you plan your beats? How do you plan your sale? How do you plan to, execute that? That is very important. But somewhere, after the current situation that we are in, it will be more important of what the action and the execution is than the plan itself. And that has to be very nimble. So people on the field will have to be very nimble. They will have to be given, some amount of authority where they can keep changing and they can keep innovating. That brings me to the second point, that there, as an organization and as a frontline sales guy or as a manager, people have to be innovative, and they have to ensure that there is a personalized connect. One shoe fits all doesn't fit here now anymore, at least not in the short term. And once we get used to it, then in the long term also, you'll have people coming back and saying, the retailers coming back and saying, this is what you're offering to everyone. What is the differential for me? Why should I look at you, or why should I pick up your brand? So that personalized engagement with the retailer is very critical. And the third thing is, we have to ensure that all the people who are front facing, who are facing the retailers or facing the external customers, they need to have an empathy. They need to listen to their customers very clearly, because so far, most of us, while we have been, we've been scaling the people, we've been training them, but somewhere we've not had the people listening to the retailer, or been very. So while I listen to someone with the intention of answering him, and not listen to someone with the intent of actually helping him solve his problem. So that is very critical. That is going to be very critical. And one more thing is, because these are tough times, and then we will have a phase where 2-3 months or maybe more of the sales would have gone completely, would have completely plummeted, taking into account the previous averages or the previous years. The sales team, the sales guy in the front line will be very demotivated. So there has to be more than enough communication, more than enough motivation that has to be provided to him, to ensure that he is out there and he's doing the best of the job that is possible. So these are a few things that I would definitely want to, this is something that I would look forward to once we have the full-fledged visits, etc., starting up post the vaccine is available.
Right. So your advice to people who are trying to set up processes, or who are trying to think what processes they should build in near future, focus on decentralization so that you empower your frontline and frontline managers uh, to to innovate at the very front line, depending on what that territory requires. You focus on action than actually planning, because we are living in a fast-paced environment, and you need to react. And the faster you react, the better you are. Maybe even if it is just a trial. Second, you
Yeah.
talk about inspiring people at the front line, having a very close loop, connect with them, and focus on sort of making them feel good and be connected on one side with you at the headquarter or the company, the region, and their customers themselves. And you're telling everybody that teach your people to sort of heighten their sense of empathy for the customer, because
Yes.
customers would need that, right? Satyam,
Yep.
anything to add to that? What would you advise the whole world?
I think Siddharth has summed it beautifully. I would slightly, try and add points which are non-exclusive, which can be added. First and foremost is patience, right? So leadership is defined at the time of crisis. So it's going to be patient, which is going to be grassrooted. A lot of sales force, a lot of people, they are not sure what is going to happen. You are a variable in the organization. You have to stand up for something which is right and give them assurance. And even if you have to go, your organization has to go through a tough time, and there's a tough announcement which is going to happen. Make sure that people are included, and it's a collective decision making for the benefit of organization. Right? Secondly, GTM design, which I talked about, which is focus on chemists, add B2C and B2B channels. If you don't, you are in trouble, as what I'll say. Thirdly, training or upskilling, which I think Siddharth has already elaborated on. The final one, which I would like to touch upon here, is the shopper marketing funnel, which has to be very, very fine-tuned with respect to all the communication and all the tracking with respect to a IT device or a mobile device, whatever happens. So we discussed a lot of parameters which we could include. They should be agile enough to include in over there. Similarly, whatever is flowing from my consumer marketing team with respect to what communication needs to be given in such difficult times, whether I'm going to stick to the COVID stereotype communication or whether I'm going to stick to something which is more hopeful, whether I'm going to focus on problem or the solution, depending on my brand. How do I build trust? How do I build credibility? How do I ensure new consumer acquisition? That's a key piece. Now, translating it down to sales through my shopper communication and in different POSM or shopper matrices is going to be extremely, extremely essential to ensure we cross-sell, we upsell, or even we push sell, as somebody asked.
Right, great. You put emphasis on again, double emphasis on skilling people, training people, because Siddharth said you have to show empathy to your customers, and you talk about how you have to have a very segmented approach to your marketplace to either reflect that in your how you sort of deal with them, engage with them, visit them, or interact with them, and also the shopper marketing stuff to sort of communicate with customer in a different way, in a credible way, when they actually walk into the stores or when they interact with you online. Great points, folks. Nikhil, if you're
Yeah.
around, we can take
Yeah, so
questions.
we have almost run out of time. In fact, we have overshot, and we have received a lot of interesting questions. We have received questions in Q&A section and in chat section. Uh, so just to summarize some questions from a broader perspective, there's one theme has been about companies which are not Unilever or which are not very large market leaders. So what should they do immediately to push their product in the immediate future? That's one question. Second is about direct to home channel. Like, is that going to be a long term channel, or how do companies plan to leverage that? So these two questions we can start with, and then you can also see any other interesting questions which remain. And just before you start answering, guys, if we do miss any of the questions or any questions are very specific to one organization, we shall personally reach out to you either on mail or phone, and we shall try to answer them one by one.
Yes.
So for now, we'll try to answer the broader questions. Go ahead, guys.
Yes. So I'm putting a question back to the audience again. This is on how do I ensure I push my sales if my category doesn't sell much, right? So, I had talked about it, but I'm going to re-emphasize this again. One clear measure is piggy banking. Look at your portfolio. Look at where you can leverage something which is already automated or is already selling. How can I piggyback on top of that and ensure that my non-consuming brands at the end of the day, ends up having an offtake uh, along with my consumption-driven brand, which is flying through the air. Secondly, this basically starts right from the fact that at an organization level, I make a chart. I understand what is going real fast, what is going real slow, and then how can I, track, monitor, focus, have different sales pitches, draw methods, training modules to upsell, to cross sell, different REs, focusing on which RE I could leverage basis my shopper of that product. For example, I'll just give an example. If let's say people are living with their pets and they really want to focus on pet care, and I am a brand which makes something a pet care food, I'm going to leverage very, very strongly on the chemist channel right now, which is open. I'm also going to come up with a large bag for my modern trade right now. In case if my GT, which stocks, is saying that I'm not going to stock a pet food, I'm going to more stock staples and other things, perhaps I'll have a small branding over there where I'll call out that this is available on so and so website, or this is available with so and so a food aggregator, maybe a Zomato or a Swiggy. Now, what I do in this case, and obviously I'm going to pay for that retailer, I'm going to do a mini ad to a lot of people who are standing in the queue, right? So that's one of the methods. I hope it answers your question, Nikhil.
Yeah, sure. So one question or one aspect that we missed was about what about Horeca channel? Like someone asked, let's say they sell to corporate cafeterias. For example, Continental Coffee asked this question to us.
See,
So what about them? What should they be doing in this time when they cannot expect corporate cafeteria sales to pick up again?
for that. Nikhil,
Sure.
I'm going to take another brand here again, which contributes roughly to almost half or 40-45% sales to Horeca, and that brand is Red Bull. Now, I see a lot
Yeah.
of these brands will have to come back and innovate and perhaps look at stories which can be communicated to the consumers, can be finally fine-tuned to that shopper, leveraging that RE to ensure my consumption drives up. Right? I've just given you one example of a brand which sells and how it can leverage on something which is my energy gaining functionality or the stuff which I've been doing, knitting it to the story. Another brand I'll tell you, which is a non-Horeca brand and has done it beautifully, which I see if you go to YouTube, there's a campaign by Dabur Red. It's called the Chabate Raho campaign. And they have done very beautifully and very optimistic and hopeful ad where they have mentioned work from home is being done by our teeth also. So that's an extension during COVID. It doesn't talk much about COVID, but it talks about the small joys of life, neglecting the fact that my tooth is involved. So I think we'll have to go deep rooted on my brand, understand what communication have I been giving, where, through what window can I leverage to drive an in-premise consumption, and perhaps start communicating that. I hope that answers your question, Nikhil.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Also,
Uh, yeah.
people, one more thing I want to highlight: a lot of beverage companies which are on the go consumption or off-premise consumption are actually having a tough time, and there's a season right now. Also, for the fact that people are not avoiding to drink something cold, which is COVID. So perhaps I could innovate on even a consumption pattern over here.
Yeah.
Is my thought.
Uh, so one question that we have it's about vendor or retailer and training. That's the question that we have just received. So
Siddharth, you
any
are
of you can answer that.
No?
you've been spending a lot of time and this in the lean period.
Yeah.
I'll just take 15 seconds to take this one.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting. In fact, it's one of the best questions which I've received so far. Because gaining span of your field force is easy. You're obviously paying them salary in some way, directly or indirectly. Gaining head span of players like which are your channel partners or people who are related to you, is very, very difficult. So I think innovation here again, and there are already startups working like MindTickle, which have gamified the training content, right? And there are people who have even put monetary benefits to it. So put in a gamified way, you play that game, you earn some money. So, you'll have to really innovate to get that share space, but very pertinent, very relevant question. And I think this is the right time where I shared companies which actually could leverage, which command a share, which are having high payouts, should actually design a relationship manager for their program, top outlets, and they should go ahead and train them, through a video or a Zoom call in whatever sort possible.
Siddharth, your take, you've been spending time in this lean period on sellers and channel partners.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, so what we strongly believe in, what I strongly believe in is that it is the connect with the customer, the connect with your primary channel, connect with your secondary channel. You need to be connected to them. And yes, whatever trainings, etc., you can impart to them, because that will be limited, because, the like I said, when you're on a video call, you're not face-to-face meeting, he's not dedicated that time to you. So you have very limited time, but the best utilization, and the best utilization of that again will be that you have to stay connected with them and innovate your communication, innovate the way you operate. And that is what I said, we have to be very nimble, very agile, because things are going to change over the next, we don't know when things will change again. So while yes, we understand that things will open up, there'll be a vaccine available, everything will be good to go, but till such time we are not completely sure of that, we will have to live on a very fluid situation. We know we'll have to keep that expectation even with the customers.
Great. Nikhil,
So-
that's it. I guess we are.
No, I would just like to push in one last question. I know it's taken a bit longer. So that's about some companies are trying to expand the expand the distribution channel for specific brands or some new launches, some new products. So how would they be ideally expanding their distribution in coming months for new brands or new products, or even for existing ones? What should they focus on?
So, for expanding into new brands, one of the things which you have to ensure, and before this question, I'll have to put a lot of questions before that. What is the kind of capital involved?
Yeah.
What is the kind of objective which you want to attain? How do you plan to acquire a consumer? But I'm sure you have limited time to take all of these my questions. So I'll give you not a correct answer to it, but the route which a lot of new FMCG companies have started doing in such a way to acquire consumers, right? So step one is the fact that these companies are going direct to consumers, going to the fact that not only you reach out through an in-store, but the kind of bandwidth which has been built right down from a top to a bottom of a pyramid in a rural village is actually something which requires a lot of investment. And in my past company, Marico, we had projects of the tune of Vikas Dor, where we used to literally put in a lot of money to gain consumers and raise distribution. You are lucky if you're starting a product right now. You do not have to invest in that kind of distribution. What will come to your rescue is B2C. So again, I'll say, of all the 4 P's, the one thing to watch out for is your product. If your product really solves a consumer problem and is really, contemporary to the problem, then perhaps half of the job is done. Your distribution first, which can be taken care by B2C. Your step 2 to acquire a consumer, you can directly go to a modern trade or a cash and carry. And this is perhaps how you begin. Step 3 would be to go to a GT. Perhaps if your objective is acquiring consumers still, you go to a supermarket or a standalone where browsability or navigability of a shopper is high. But perhaps if your objective is top line sales, in this case, go directly to a wholesale. And as I speak to you, I know one company which is Vinny Pharma, which makes this brand which is called Fog. They largely thrive on wholesale, and they are the market leaders right now in country, beating the likes of Unilever and Nivea for overall Dio portfolio in terms of market share, and which is a very fragmented market share and highly commoditized product. But they have leveraged because they focus highly on wholesale. So these are the general steps, I will say. I think a detailed analysis I can definitely present once I know more about the product and the kind of plans or objectives and fundings which you have.
Siddharth, anything to add to that, or we call it over?
No, I think I think he summarized it by quite well. So so if it solves the customer problem, you need to ensure that you are, so right now it will be anyone who's omnipresent in all the channels is the one who's going to sail through. anyone who tries to restrict himself to either online or B2C or modern, any one particular trade channel will find it difficult to go. That is all that I want to add.
Folks, with that word of wisdom and many more that came through this discussion, I totally enjoyed the discussion with both of you. Thanks for
Thank you.
being
Thank
customers
you.
as well. Siddharth, for last 3 years and continuing. You, Satyam, in your earlier stint at Nivea, thanks for being customers, and more importantly, just come and join this session to share it with the entire community. So I really thank you guys. It's been pleasure and honor for me.
Just one word, Vinay, before you finish and give the finishing touch. I see a lot of questions which are very relevant for our discussion one-on-one whenever it happens. And I want to answer a lot of questions. So perhaps people who have it can reach out to me over a LinkedIn and put this. I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, I was going to say that. So Siddharth, Satyam, and I, all three of us are on LinkedIn. Do connect folks on LinkedIn. And there's an email at the screen that you see, harshul@beatroute.io. Just send in your questions if you haven't, or anything that comes to you in next few days. We'll be really happy to have right people answer those. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.